Thank you for joining us again today. We want to first of all mention Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are watching. We know that this is a blessed day for you and it's been set aside to honor you. And I can tell you that all the mothers deserve more honor than they'll ever get in their life for all the unseen things that they do for their family and for other people. So we want to wish you a happy Mother's Day and pray that this is a blessed day for you. We're glad that you joined us again today, and we want to take up with a message that we started last week. Hopefully you're able to find these messages on Facebook, and you're seeing what we're trying to bring to you and receiving in your life and for your family. And we know that God will bless you and God will help you the more that He fortifies your life with the Word. It's, the fortification of the Word in our life brings strength, brings comfort, brings peace, brings nothing but good things to your life. You can be in the midst of the storm, but the Word will steady you and it'll give you hope for the way out and for the answer to come to your life. Now today as we start, we want to read one last scripture that we had last week and then go on from there, but we want to just go back so that you know a frame of reference here. But we had read in Deuteronomy 30 and verse number 19, and it said, I call to heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your seed may live. Now here God is giving a choice to people. And He's saying, I've got blessing for you, or you can go the way of the world or go your own way, and a curse would be the way of life to you. But He said, I've set before you life and death. I want to live and live till the moment that I die. There's some people that death comes sooner than actual death. They die spiritually, they die in their passions and their emotions, and they just become like a stone, and there's nothing that's really helping them in their life. Don't give up on life. God has a full life for you, because He said, I've set these things before you. And then He tells them, therefore choose life, that both you and your seed shall live. We have the power to make a choice. We have the power to let into our life those things that bless us, those things that keep us strong, those things that keep us on track, those things that keep us full of life. And I know that you've met people in your lifetime that they're full of life. Even into their advanced age, they're full of life. They haven't given up on life yet. They're living it to the fullest. And as a Christian and a person that follows after God or has a heart for the things of God, you have the opportunity and the choice to live the good things. Do bad things happen? Yes, they do. But God says in those things, you can have the blessing, and you can have life, and you can have good things that are set before you. You can see the good in the midst of all the trouble that sometimes comes to people's lives. Now I want to read a scripture here that we ended with last week, and it's in Deuteronomy Chapter 30, and it's verses 6 through 8. And the Lord thy God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. And the Lord your God will put all these curses upon your enemies and on them that hate you, which persecuted you. And you shall return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all the commandments which I command you this day. Now in this scripture, it's a promise. God says, I'm not going to forsake you, but I'm going to be a part of your life, and I'm going to lead your life, and I'm going to help you. And I'm going to circumcise your heart. That's cutting away all the fleshliness that our heart takes in and that is set in our heart. He said, I'll cut all those things out, and I'll give you a heart that you can feel God and that you can know God and that you can know the true way. And your heart won't be governed by the things of this world. Because he said, I cut all that away so you can feel me instead of only feel the things of this world. But he said, you would love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, that you may live. Life is when you're loving God with everything that's within you. You have more of life in you when your love and your heart and your affection is set on God. And he's telling us we have this choice. We have this that we can do that will make our life better. We'll make it more full of peace. We'll make it have more tranquility in it. You won't be at your wit's end at all the time because of things that are coming your way. You'll know that God's going to work things out for you. But look at this in verse number 7. He said, and the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon your enemy. The curse does not belong to you. It belongs to your enemy. That's its rightful place. And I've seen people in my lifetime that have gone through life thinking that the curse was on them. But you see, the enemy had deceived them. And the enemy said, I'm going to give you a lesser life to live. And they listened to what the enemy was going to give them instead of what God was going to give them. But God said, I'll take the curse that they put on you or tried to put on you, and I'll put it on your enemy. You know, I've known a lot of people in my time that things happened to them, and it was one thing after another. It was a succession of failures or hard things for their life to take in. But you see, God says those curses that the enemy tried to put on you, he said, I'm going to put it on them. It's not going to live in you. It's not going to stay on you. It's not going to be your way of life. It's going to be something that God says, I take it off of your life and I set it on the life of your enemies. And you need to take that today in your spirit. And you say to yourself, okay, God, I know this. You're going to bless me, and the curses that have tried to come against my life and limit my life and to plague my life, those things are leaving my life today. And you're going to set that on my enemies. You know, God knows who your enemies are, and he knows how to affect them to leave you alone. And he will do that. I can tell you today, if you'll believe God, the curse is going to leave your life. Whatever you thought was a curse to you is going to leave your life, and peace is going to follow it. And he said, verse number 8, when all of these things, when the curses go on your enemy, he said, then you shall return and obey the voice of the Lord. You'll come back to a place of peace. You'll come back to a place where God's in control. You'll come back to a place where you know God is leading you, and you feel that leading in your life. And not only that, it says that and you will obey the voice of the Lord. That's significant to you because in order to obey it, you have to hear it. And I know many people that say they can't hear God and they haven't heard from God. All the troubles come to their life and they say, I can't hear God. I can't hear what he's saying. But he said, you're going to start to hear, and that hearing you're going to obey. In other words, he will begin to speak your answers. He will begin to speak the path for you out of your troubles. He knows how to end all this stuff. I can tell you that there are times that I have seen people's life surrounded by problematic people, by people that didn't do them any good. They tore down the person rather than lifted up that person. But I can tell you that God's ready to take that off of your life, and he'll set it somewhere else where it's not a part of your life. People will no longer begin to speak all the things that they've spoken to you that discouraged you. He'll take that away from you, and he'll give you a new life, and he'll let you hear the Lord and begin to obey him. When you obey him, there's a different path. There's a different way that you walk. There's a different way that you make your decisions. Whenever you obey God, in order to obey, remember, it takes a hearing ear. So what he's promising to you this day is that hearing God's voice is going to come to your life. and it's going to help you, and it's going to bring peace to your life. Deuteronomy 1:8 says this, "Behold, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them and to their seed after them." You see, God's people had sought a better life. They'd been in bondage. They'd been under the heavy hand of Egypt. And God said, it's time for you to be liberated and for you to be set free. So he said, I've set a land before you, or I've set an escape for you. I have set a reward for your suffering before you. Because when they went into the land, it was theirs to possess. It was theirs to have. It was a land that was going to be a land of blessing. There was things there that had to be overcome, but it was better than Egypt, because every battle they fought in this land, they won. You see, God turned a corner to them. They'd been in hundreds of years in bondage. Someone else was making their decisions for them. Someone else was determining their welfare. But God said, this is the hour and this is the day that I'm going to set a land before you for you to dwell. It's going to be a land of blessing. It's going to be a land of overcoming. It's going to be a place where you receive the good things of life instead of receiving the hardships that you've been under. The blessings are going to come. He said, I set the land before you, that word set means this. To place at your disposal. In other words, you determine how things are going to go. He said, you will have the authority to choose your path or the way of life. If you could change things in your life, what would you change? What would you make different in your life? He said, I'm giving you that place. I'm setting before you a future where you're going to go towards, and something that you're going to possess and something that you're going to have. But he said, I'm giving you the power to be blessed. I'm giving you the power to receive a new life, a new way forward. To receive life as you've never seen it. Choose your path or your way of life. You have the authority, and not someone always interrupting your intentions or your decisions and making you to receive less. You see, God was ready to change their wandering and their nomadic life to one of being settled and one of belonging where they were at, instead of someone always pressing on them and threatening them like Egypt did when they were in Egypt. They wandered in the wilderness and they'd fought enemies who had sought to destroy their life. And all this came into their life in order to find out what belonged to them. You see, even though the enemy pressed them and pushed on them and fought them and without mercy would attack them, God said, I'm going to use what the enemy's doing for the good of my people. That enemy thinks he's driving you, but God says, I'm using it to lead you to a place where you're going to be blessed. So don't look at things and say, God's forsaken me or forgotten me. Look and say, God's getting me to the place I belong. Now, he wanted to take the struggle out of their faith. And his desire for them was to find a settling and a direction where they knew that God was with them. The enemy meant it for bad. And God says, I'll use the evil intentions of the enemy to cause my people to come to where I'm in control. And they know that they're in a better place than they've been in their life. Don't look at the enemy and give him more honor. He deserves none. Don't look at the enemy and say, well, he's made me be frightful and made me be fearful. Look at the enemy and say, okay, your day's coming. God's got better things in store for me, and you're not going to have control over me any longer, and you're not going to control where I go, how I go, and the length of time that I'm there. God's letting the blessing come, and the enemy's not going to steal it anymore from your life. He wanted to take that struggle out of their faith, because whenever you don't see your answers come quickly, sometimes we struggle in our faith. But it's faith that gets you through all those times and leads you to the right place. His desire was to find a settling and a direction where they knew God was with them. People question themselves because of the trial being hard, and they ask themselves, what did I do? Should I have gone another way? Should I have made my decision another way? And they've made one bad decision after another. But God says that day is over. And I'm setting a new day before you. God has the power to set those things. The enemy tries to take them from us, but God says, I set those things in the life of my people, and nothing detours my plan from their life. As long as my people have faith, and as long as they walk forward in the things of God, these things that the enemy has tried to put on them are going to be of no effect, and they're going to pass away. God doesn't want us living a life of regrets and not reaping the blessings of God. He wants your life to be full, and He wants you to know the goodness and the fullness of God to your life. Choose His blessings and forsake the way that brings the curse. You have the power to choose blessing, and you have the power to forsake all of these things the enemy has put against your life to bring the curse upon your life and to steal the blessing from you. You have more power than what you realize. God gave you power. God gave you authority. God said, I have set things, and I have worked for my people, and I have looked for the day of their deliverance. I want to read in Deuteronomy 1:21. It says this, Behold, the Lord your God has set the land before you. Listen to these two phrases. He said, I've set the land before you. And He said, go up and possess it. Go up and possess it. Get out of the low place. Get out of the place where you think you don't matter. Get out of that low place where you think you don't have the authority for change to come to your life. You have the authority for change to come. You have the authority to set a better direction in your life. You have the authority to draw close to God. He said, get up and go and possess it. Don't let the enemy take ownership of the things that are rightfully yours. I've watched and I've seen people that they live a life of sadness. They live a life of what is going to happen next to me, the next time to me that's going to be bad. All their expectations are bad things coming. How long is this good streak going to last? Am I going to go under? Am I going to start really trusting God and really thinking change is coming? Then the enemy's just going to pull the rug out from underneath me? Go up and possess it. He told them that because God knew two things. He knew it was their time to go, and He knew it was their time to get up and possess the goodness of God. He knew it was that time, and secondly, He knew He was going to help them. Maybe in a way that they'd never seen God before, but He was going to help them, and He was going to bring a better hour to their life. He was going to bring a better way and a better life to them because of the words that He said, go up and possess it. Maybe you need to write that down somewhere and look at it every day. Go up and possess it. And it will change your life, because when you possess something, you own it instead of something owning you and controlling you and dictating to you. God says, my people, that's not where I want them. My people are not to be in this condition. They're to be in a better place spiritually and emotionally. Now, he goes on and he says this in the same verse 21 of Deuteronomy 1. He said, as the Lord God of your fathers has said unto you, fear not, neither be discouraged. Here's 4 things in this one verse that will cause your life to change for the better. Go up and possess it, and then fear not, neither be discouraged. Don't let fear be the thing that halts you. When fear tries to conquer you, and tries to dominate your life, I learned early in my life that whenever I felt like the enemy was too great for me, or that I was too fearful of what might happen so I wouldn't try to press forward, I learned that's the time to press forward. Run towards the enemy. You'll find out he won't stand against you because he knows you figured out that you have the victory and that God's on your side and that God is leading you and that God has told you to go up and possess. And so these fear not and be discouraged times are not going to be a part of your life very much longer. Those things are going to leave your life. In order to inherit the land that God had set before them, they had to dispossess the enemy that would make them weak and bring them into a life of being bound to another's will. You see, you're not to be bound to the enemy and his will. You're free. You've been told to go up and to possess it, and to fear not and don't be discouraged. Keep pressing forward. The more discouraged you feel coming against you, the harder you should walk forward, because he's trying to slow you down and put you in reverse and put you back to the same old place that you used to be in. But that's not a place that God has for you, because he told them, go up and possess it. Don't go back to Egypt. Don't go back to the bondage. Don't go back to the place where you had no say over your life. He told them, go at your enemies. They're in a high place. Go up and possess it. You see, God told them it wasn't just a wishful thinking. It was a command to them. Go up and possess it. And stop being fearful and stop being discouraged and encourage yourself and fight the enemy that's trying to destroy your life and try to come into control of your life. You've inherited something that God says, I've set a better place before you in your life. And the enemy doesn't have control there. You do. I've said this before, that people think that they don't want to make the enemy mad at them because he'll attack them. When you go up and you possess something, you get the feeling of, I'm finally in control. I've finally overcome. Go right at your enemy. And when the enemy talks to you, you tell him to shut his mouth and to leave you alone. That your life is dependent upon the things of God. And you walk according to the way God has you to walk in your life, and not the way of some enemy that's trying to discourage you or lie to you or to defeat you every time you turn around. Just think of this. Every step you take forward is a defeat for the enemy that's against your life. So keep walking forward. Don't retreat. Walk forward. Don't retreat. Go up and possess. Don't be discouraged. Don't be fearful. The more you see those things, the more you should go forward, because it's something that the enemy put before you. It's not what God put before you. God put a possession, a possession that was to last until eternity comes. A possession that was going to be theirs that they would never lose. Know that God has something for you, that he's not taken it and given it to another. He's given it to you. Now, it's in that last part of that 21st verse, it said to fear not, and then neither be discouraged. That word fear there means to revere, or to frighten. He said, don't revere something that's not of God. And don't be frightened by things that are not of God. I've had people talk to me that whenever the night came, they got fearful. They were afraid of the dark. They turned all the lights on in their house. They were afraid to go out of their house because it was dark. As long as the lights were on in their house, they could stay and be there and not, be afraid to a certain extent. Because some of them were afraid to go to sleep at night. Some of them were afraid to go out of their house. Night controlled them. The Bible says that we are the children of the day. We are not of the night. We are of the day. And I want to tell you, whenever God created the world, He made day and He made night. Don't be fearful of the night. God created it. He gave man the authority to go and to walk in things that are in darkness. You see, He said, fear not. Don't be frightened. Don't revere the things that the enemy always works in a certain unknown way, that we're fearful of that unknown thing, that we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Don't revere and bow down to the enemy. Stand up on your feet and go up and possess what God told you to take. Because the enemy uses an image against you that is more powerful than anything that will ever come against your life. But the truth of the matter is, the power lies within you, because God is in you, and there is no power in heaven or earth that is able to thwart the power of God in your life. God commanded the light, and he caused the darkness to come, but He set a lesser light. He set the moon to rule the night. You see, in the night, God says, I've still got light. The enemy will bring you to a place and say, well, the truth is the darkness has come and you lost. And you just say, nope, the moon's rising. God's got a light for me. God's going to help me see my way forward. And I'm not going to listen to the enemy of my life again. It also told him to not be discouraged. And that discouraged there, it means to prostrate or to break down by violence or by confusion or by fear. You see, the enemy wants to knock you down. And he'll use any means he can do to do that. But whenever you get to this place, it's discouragement that makes you lay down. It's discouragement that makes you let the enemy have his way. It's discouragement that causes you to hear the voice of the enemy. But God says in this place, don't fear and do not be discouraged. These things come from a power of the enemy that doesn't have the power that God has for your life. Now, I want to read you a scripture that's very familiar to us, but it really has something in it for us. And it's in Psalm 23, verses 3 through 6. I'm not going to read the whole thing, I just want to read part of it. But I want you to listen to this and maybe hear this in a different way for your life today. David was a man that had a lot of enemies against him. He was a man that wanted to walk right with God, but there were many things that attacked his life. But in one of those times when he was feeling low, the 23rd Psalm is created out of the problem and the situation that David was in. But listen to this. Verse number 3 of Psalm 23. He restores my soul. Have you ever been in a battle? You felt like it was raging in your soul, and you felt like you were losing all semblance of order and power to live the life that you wanted to live? You see, in that time, David said, I felt that way, but God restored my soul when my soul was almost lost. Your soul is the seat of your passions and your hungers and your delights and your desires. You see, people can lose that. But God says, I restored David when he was at his lowest. And if he restored David, he can restore you. He said, he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. You see, God doesn't want to be known as a God that's deserted his people. He wants to be known as a God that leads him in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. You see, the enemy, when he hears that you belong to God and you tell him, I belong to God, I don't belong to you, What the enemy is hearing is God's leading you in paths of righteousness, not path of destruction, not path of failure, not path where you don't receive anything. It's a path of righteousness. And he said it's not just a path, it's many paths. There's an S on the end of path. God has so many ways to lead you that are good. You're not confined like the devil's trying to make you confined. Some people think the only way out for me is this way. God says, nope. I've got all kinds of ways for you to get out of the hand of the enemy and into the hand of God. Verse 4 says this, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You see, he said, I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death. But he said there, I will fear no evil. Why did he say I would fear no evil? Because he said, you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. In the difficulty of life, he has a path for you to walk, that he is with you, that he will comfort you, that he will guide you. And it says that your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That rod there is a stick that's for fighting, ruling, or walking. In the lexicon, it means the shepherd's instrument. You see, when he's the shepherd of your life, he has everything you need to keep you on the right track. You know, when I was a boy, my granddad and my dad bought several hundred sheep. And so they would set me and my brother, who were, 6 and 7 years old, set us out on a hillside to watch the sheep. And I always thought, what in the world am I doing sitting out here in the middle of nowhere watching a bunch of sheep eat? But when I became a Christian, I thought about that time when I was sitting on the side of a hill watching several hundred sheep just eat away. And I remembered my granddad or my dad would come out of the barn or come out of the house, and they'd yell and they'd say, bring the sheep in. So I'd get up, and we had a couple of dogs, and I'd say, go get them. And the dogs would start to run back and forth around that herd of sheep. And I'd tell the dogs, I'd direct the 2 dogs, and they would direct the sheep. And through the efforts of me and the dogs, we'd bring the sheep back into the pen, and all I had to do was walk in there, close the gate, and then tell the dogs to let up. And then they would go. And I accomplished this great task where I was the conqueror of several hundred sheep. But I did it in a very simple manner, in a simple way. You see, your answer is going to come. And God is going to lead you like a shepherd. And I can guarantee you he'll do a better job than I ever could as a shepherd. But even me in my weakness and my youth, I could still command the sheep, and I could still get them to where they needed to be. God knows where to lead you. If he's the shepherd, then he's leading you to the place that you need to be in. He's leading you to people that you need to be in contact with. He's leading you to the place where the blessings are going to be and not the curse. He's taken all of this out of your life, and he's set a better life for you. You know, a shepherd sets the direction of the sheep. He sets the time when they go out to eat in the morning, and when they come in the afternoon or at night. He sets where they're going to be when they come in. He sets how they're going to come to that place where they have their rest, and it's time to rest and be protected in the barn or in the corral, wherever you put the sheep. You see, he is over our life in every facet of our life. There's nothing that God is not mindful of. You know, when I was the little shepherd boy sitting on the hillside, I had to be mindful of where the sheep were, because there's things they could get in and they could eat, and it'd be a poison to them. And I had to keep that away from them. But there's also a time when I took them out And when I brought him back in, you see, in verse number 5, it says, Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You know, a lot of us are afraid in the presence of our enemies. But that's where God chose to set a table that you would set at, and that you would partake of the things that you need for your life and keep your strength up. And your enemy can't do anything to prevent that from happening. Don't let your fear and your height of your trial that you're in steal the opportunity for God to feed you, for you to receive what you need for your life, to make you strong again, to make you be able to face the next day and the things that are in that day. He prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. Think about that. That's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of confidence. To sit down and take a meal when the enemy is supposedly all around you, and this enemy thinks you're in great fear and thinking you're going to run, and all you do is you go down and you sit at a table that the Lord prepares for you, and you receive the goodness and the blessings of God that strengthen your life. You know, whenever you sit at a table, you eat the things that make you feel the best. You pick and choose of those things that are on the table, and you choose what makes you happy, what makes you feel at peace or at rest. You see, God gives you the choice to be at rest. God gives you the choice to receive what's a blessing for you, and takes away the struggle that the enemy would try to put on your life. Verse number 6, it says, Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, if something's going to follow you, wouldn't it be great if it was the goodness and the mercies of God on your life? Wouldn't it be a blessing to you if you didn't have to worry about what the enemy was trying to do, because goodness and mercy were right behind you and supporting you and pushing you forward and causing you to advance in your life instead of fall back at the presence of the enemy? That's why God says, you know, when he said all these things there, you know, in verse 5, it said he anoints my head with oil and my cup runs over. This doesn't sound like a life of fear. It does not sound like a life where the enemy has control and he can make you fearful at any moment. This is a life that God says, I lead, I instruct, I bless, I follow, I lead. Whatever is needed, I'm there to help that person. You need God to help you today. You need God to give you the confidence that's in this scripture. It's not me saying all these things. These things were written down for you to receive today. These promises that we've read today are promises to your life. It's a personal thing. It's not for someone else. It's for you. And I want you to believe God today, that God is going to help you, and God is going to keep you, and God is going to lead you, and God's going to open up your life, and the blessings are going to come. And you're going to have a life where the bounty belongs to you, and the enemy is not stealing your blessing. He's not stealing your peace. He's not stealing these things from you, but rather God is making these things become more real in you and become more of a blessing to you, to where you have peace and you have safety and you have confidence in your life. And you know that no matter what comes, God is with you, he's in you, he's for you, and he's going to lead you. Because God sets things in our life, and they're just for us to receive and to have and to be a possession of our life that cannot be taken by any power of the enemy, by any circumstance that this life might bring to you. God's over everything that comes your way, and he's ready to bless you.